Let's face it, us petrolheads can't get enough of motorsport, and we'll travel anywhere we can to catch a glimpse of it. From the Isle of Man TT to the British Grand Prix, the Wales Rally GB to Santa Pod, there are some amazing events to attract speed junkies from all over Great Britain. But there are some events you may not know about that are just as worth it. So here's my top 10 list of the best motorsport events that won't necessarily be on your radar. Yet. Firstly, there's the third Grand Prix after Formula 1 and MotoGP. The world of superkart racing used to be up there with the BTCC and World Sports Cars, but times have changed. The racing, however, hasn't, and your trip to Donington will reward you with some of the most fearless, daring and spectacular racing you'll ever see on the short circuit, in the fastest karts in Britain. Even Michael Schumacher and Valentino Rossi have said these karts are terrifying, and that shows you just how sensational and crazy these superkarts really are. Then there's the least publicised of Goodwood's hat-trick. Most of us know about the Revival and the Festival of Speed, but the members' meeting in March is quickly becoming the race weekend to kickstart the British racing season, and reboots us after a long hibernation in front of the telly. With 4 teams separated by houses, English college or Hogwarts style, some of Britain and Europe's finest racers will take to the wheel of some amazing vintage machines to get us in gear for the new season. It's definitely worth it, but wrap up warm for goodness sake. If modern Formula 1 sends you to sleep, there's always BRISCA F1. Stock car racing at the top level is an amazing sight and a total assault on all the senses. The World Final sees the best in the country, as well as the best drivers from the Netherlands, New Zealand and South Africa, descending on one of Britain's top short ovals. This year, you'll be heading to Skegness for the biggest race of the year on the 3rd week of September. And I'd book early, as the crowd is akin to a football stadium. And the atmosphere is just as exciting. Now, you don't need to travel to Le Mans for a great 24-hour race. Snetterton is the venue for the Citroen 2CV Enduro Classic. Having run since the 1990s, it's cheap, cheerful and bags of fun, and you can probably afford to compete in it yourself next year. This is the ultimate event for people who like their motorsport with a pinch of hilarity. But this sport is no joke. The teams and racers take it just as seriously as the bigger events. The only difference is the budget, and the fact that everyone who takes part has a massive smile on their face. Speaking of which, motorsport doesn't get much more fun than lawnmower racing, and the jewel in the sport's crown is the 12 hours at Wisborough Green. Don't be fooled, it looks bonkers, but it's probably 3 times more physical and demanding than racing a 2CV. The bumpy fields, the rocky ride, and the fact that these mowers hit a good 50 miles an hour on this temporary racetrack boggle the mind. It's also fascinating and extraordinary to roam the paddock and witness the transformation from a farmer's field in Kent into a miniature Le Mans. Of all the classic events, my personal favourite is the Gold Cup at Alton Park. This is largely because the circuit has been almost completely unchanged since its opening back in the 1950s, but it's also because of the spirit of the event itself. Everybody mucks in, and the whole place goes completely retro, so that you genuinely feel like you're stepping back 5 decades. Plus, in this event, there really is something for everyone, be you a fan of vintage Grand Prix and sports car racing, or a super touring car nutcase. Worth every penny. Oh, and wear a checked cap. For me, the best single-seater event in Great Britain is still the Formula Ford Festival. Some of F1's best ever racing drivers have used this race as the first major stepping stone up the ladder, from Damon Hill and Johnny Herbert to Jenson Button. And even during a period when some of the Slicks and Wings championships have more credence and publicity, you can genuinely spy the future's touring car or GT racing champions in this Indy 500 style club event at Brands Hatch. Because in my view, if you can win in Formula Ford, you can really win in anything. Amongst Silverstone's brilliant calendar is a weekend like no other. Every October, any driver who has any kind of racing car is welcome to join the BRISCA Relay. With handicap systems and tag team style pit stops, you can see Caterhams racing Porsches and BMW saloons, and even vintage race cars. I guarantee that you'll never see more different types of racing car in any one grid in British motorsport. That also means the battles on track are pretty unbelievable. Where else can you watch a Ford Anglia do battle with a TVR Tuscan? Remember those 2CVs? There's a horrible chance that one day they'll die out, but at least the new C1 has a chance to carry the baton into the 21st century. The first 24-hour race for the little supermarket hatchback ran earlier this year at Rockingham, with the second event coming this autumn to the same track, and already it's proving to be incredibly popular. And I predict it's only going to get bigger, with BTCC and British GT teams already looking eager to get more involved over the next few years. Mark my words, this one's gonna get bigger and better. Finally, no, it's not Fast and the Furious 37, it is in fact the Coventry MOTOFEST. Motorbikes, racing cars, drifters, stock cars, you name it, it's probably at Coventry MOTOFEST. Massive credit to these guys, as once a year they close the ring roads of the city of Coventry and put on displays and even mini races in front of the British public. It's basically motorsport on parade, and again, it's been growing in stature since the first event back in 2014. And thanks to their hard work, we now have a public bill permitting racing on British streets. Nice one, guys. There are a few events we wish would come back. For a start, we'd love to watch Formula 1 at Donington and Brands Hatch again, but we fear neither will happen anytime soon, so you'll have to watch the Retro F1 cars instead. But the new street racing bill could see the return of the Birmingham SUPERKART, which ran in the 1980s, which Formula E may be bringing back. They ran in London 2 years running. But the next London Grand Prix looks likely to be for powerboats, which was returning this year for the first time in 3 decades.